Welcome back. Following the violence recorded during the Kogi and Bayelsa state elections on November 16th, how can we address election and post-election violence in the country? Well, according to the upper chamber, the proposed bill, if signed into law, will prescribe severe penalties for perpetrators of violence during any election in the country. But how does this proposition fit into existing laws? My guest, a senior advocate, says laws already exist to effectively tackle the phenomenon.
For me, I think it's merely reactionary. We already have the law in place. If I may refer to what we normally describe as the doctrine of covering the field, you have more than enough laws, as it were, addressing criminality in whatever form, not necessarily associated with election. And then the beauty of all of this is that the Electoral Act also has provision addressing some of these issues. A particular example, for instance, if on election day you have firearms on you and you use it to threaten, the act is there. You will be arrested and then you'll be prosecuted. A political party that sponsors is also can also be criminally culpable and accordingly tried. So you have enough provisions, either in the act or other criminal legislation, that criminalizes certain conduct. For instance, arson is also part of election fallout. So you don't have to limit it only to elections. That these are things that come up during election time. So you already have laws covering the field.
Can INEC or should INEC be empowered to prosecute offenders, electoral offenders?
Yes, certainly. It's also part of the reform. If you want, for instance, why would INEC not be empowered, for instance, to prosecute? Federal Inland Revenue is empowered to prosecute. The Attorney General's office, who is the supervisory overriding authority when it comes to prosecution, can actually be mandated to prosecute. The only thing you then now do is you now need to employ more lawyers in the Ministry of Justice to do things like this. You also need to ensure that you engage more policemen, for instance, to do this. And then regularly, you could also have, like in other civilized crime, you have internal affairs to scrutinize, survey, and ask questions in relation to the powers of the police in terms of their functions and what they're doing. You could have an office of the ombudsman to ensure that things are done properly. So you see, until you do all of these things, this problem will continue.
When you listen to some of the ideas or bills that are coming before the National Assembly, this 9th National Assembly, Senate and House of Representatives, most especially the Senate, are you happy with the ideas they're bringing up? Because, I mean, apart from this bill, there are several other bills that they've also brought before the floor that a lot of people have criticized in recent past.
It's not in the laws. We have more than enough laws addressing these issues. For instance, under our various criminal legislation, murder, for instance, can be prosecuted. So if murder occurs at election, the person responsible will be charged for murder. So it's not something that you can align only with election. Electoral violence cuts across. It comes in different forms. For instance, if an electoral violence occurs by way of arson, the law is there. If electoral violence occurs by way of possession of firearms, the law is there. So you have laws covering the field. So you don't have to have an Electoral Offences Act. Election is always seasonal. What then happens if you set up a commission and election is over? What will they be doing in the commission? And I think these are things that we need to look at. So you can ask yourself, what will the police, for instance, need to make it more effective and efficient? And so you address those needs. What are the things that you need to make available to make enforcement more stringent, more swift and effective? You make those things available. I think those are the things that we need to address. Now, I can commend the National Assembly, for instance, in the new law that they're trying to pass into the new legislation that has to do with budget allocation for capital projects. Such things, for me, those are the kind of things that they should dwell on. You're saving for the rainy day. The government must now begin to embark on capital projects. So 40% of the budget will now be set aside. That's fantastic. It simply means that government will now be responsible. But to now legislate or enact a law for electoral violence when you already have an electoral act that has created offenses under it, I think is a waste of time. I think it's simply we're doing what somebody would describe as treating the symptoms rather than the source.
Whose responsibility would you say is to ensure that this stops, the electoral violence? I mean, we have elections coming up next year.
The heads of the institutions, for instance, the Inspector General of Police is expected to discharge the functions of his office without fear or favor, without recourse to the executive, because he is there to ensure peace and security. Everybody who has been saddled with one responsibility or the other in terms of being in charge of an enforcement agency of government is expected to discharge the functions of his office without recourse to the executive. And that's the essence of this. But in a situation where you tend to defer, you tend to look up to your appointer, this problem will continue. Even if you set up an electoral commission, you have a party that is in government. And if the party decides to rig itself into government, who will prosecute it? Who will go after them?
And finally, a recap of some of the top trending stories from the courtrooms.
The Federal High Court in Lagos has granted suspected internet fraudster Ismaila Mustafa alias Mumfa bail after listening to the application by his lawyers. The suspect, who was arraigned before Justice Muhammad Liman of the Federal High Court Ikoyi by the EFCC, is accused of a 14-count charge bordering on money laundering and other related offences. Mumfa is alleged to have laundered the funds through a firm, Ismalab Global Investments Limited, the second defendant in the suit, between 2015 and 2018. The scheduled trial of former chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Maurice Iwu, was stalled on Monday, November the 25th, as a trial judge, Justice Nicholas Owebo, did not sit. Professor Iwu is facing 3 counts bordering on fraud and money laundering before the Federal High Court in Lagos. He was first arraigned on August the 8th before Justice Chuka Obiozo, who granted bail in the sum of 1 billion naira. Following the transfer of the case to Justice Owebo, Professor Iwu was rearranged by the EFCC on October the 24th, where he pleaded not guilty, and Justice Owebo adjourned till Monday, November the 25th for a trial to commence. In the absence of the judge, the case was further adjourned to February the 27th, 2020. The Elections Petition Appeal sitting in Jos upheld the election of Simon Lalong as the duly elected governor of Plateau State. In the lead judgment delivered by Honorable Justice Adumain Otisi, the appeal of Jeremiah Oseni and the People's Democratic Party was dismissed for lack of merit and aligned with the Election Tribunal decision affirming the election of Governor Simon Lalong. The sum of 200,000 naira is awarded as cost in the favor of the governor and the All Progressives Congress. A federal high court sitting in Abuja granted bail to the chairman of the defunct Pension Reform Task Team, Mr. Abdurrashid Maina, in the sum of 1 billion naira with 2 sureties in light sum. Both sureties must be serving Nigerian senators with no criminal cases before the court. Both sureties must also have fully developed landed property in Maitama or Asokoro district of Abuja. According to the court ruling on Monday, the sureties must also submit 3 years tax clearance certificates and must appear at all further court rulings with the first defendant. On the same day, a medical report submitted to the Federal High Court by the Nigerian Correctional Services declared Mr. Maina fit to stand trial. The examination conducted on the order of the court reports that Maina's health is well under control and he can stand trial.
And that's our program this week. Thank you for watching. Be sure to catch the repeat on air or watch via our YouTube channel. I'm Millicent Nwonka. Bye for now.